this is a miracle this rust bucket hasn't blown up yet. You Fedya Nocturnal?
Привет, Stalker. Что скажешь?
I'm your transporter. Let's move out. Whoa, who the fuck are these two? You said you'd be alone. Either get rid of them or pay me triple. Fine. Now we are ready to go. Stay back, buddy. I'll deal with them. Those damn Jehovah's Witnesses. Wait a second. My name is Billy Backdoor, and this is my story. And before we start expecting another inspirational tale about some baby-faced rookie arriving in his zone with a rusty Makarov, 2 cans of tourist delight and dreams bigger than his life expectancy, no, we are skipping that part entirely. I'm a respected man around here. Courier, guide, rescuer, whatever. Doesn't really matter what you call it. At the end of the day, it's all the same job. Moving someone or something from point A to point B. Sometimes from B back to A. I got rules. Rule number 1.
No names.
Yes, names. I need a name, otherwise how the fuck am I supposed to find someone? Rule number 2. While we travel together, you will continuously provide me with snacks and other valuable offerings. Also, don't forget to occasionally remind me what a cool guy I am. And rule number 3. You do what I say. I don't have many enemies, aside from mutants, fanatics, and the occasional complete degenerate. Everybody needs my services, and there is barely any colleagues left who haven't either walked into an anomaly, overdosed on lead poisoning, or gotten flattened at the pseudo-giant's fat ass. How does my day usually start? Most of the time with me cursing the fact I wasn't born as some cute anime girl in Japan. After that, I go drag somebody's courier out of a bandit den at the garbage and escort his ass back to Cordon. As you may have noticed, the zone's changed quite a bit recently. Roads that used to be routine are now impassable anomaly-infested hellholes, transitions between locations got reshuffled, and roads that supposedly led nowhere suddenly opened up. Even monolith troops started showing up on Cordon now, which used to be borderline unthinkable. Although somehow these crystal worshipping cycles consistently get beaten to death by rookies, carrying rusty double barrels and approximately 17 minutes of combat experience. I'm not that religious, but you almost have to respect that level of commitment. Imagine dedicating your entire existence to a glowing rock only to get folded by a man named Vitya, wearing a leather jacket and carrying expired backshot from 1998. Thing is, a couple years ago there was this weapons dealer here, a real lord of war. Guy unleashed absolute fucking chaos across the zone. Everyone fighting everyone, all thanks to his cheap little death dispensers he kept selling left and right. As you can see, people had one hell of a time back then. The military even built a giant-ass wall on Cordon to protect the outside world from us. Like we are the White Walkers or some shit. Shame we don't have a thick-ass queen riding a dragon. Obviously, the natural disasters weren't his doing, although honestly, a bastard like that could probably piss off the earth itself. But back to our ship. The local bandits set themselves at the depot, some pig apparently died from cringe, and hopefully Yurka Factor didn't completely shit his pants from all the bullets flying overhead, because I'm definitely not carrying him myself. Package delivered successfully. Now, Clear Sky wants us to escort some egghead to a specific anomaly so he can take measurements and make it back alive. So you are the most bloodthirsty man in the Academy of Sciences, am I right? When we reached this spot, we found an absolute massacre. Dead dogs, dead boars, dead cats.
Парни, все делаем в темпе. Чем раньше закончим, тем целее будем.
As you say, Doc. You just stand there listening to frogs while eating beans. Best job in the world. Honestly, I hate walking through the swamps, and those Clear Sky guys are specific. Pretty sure the climate does something to their brains. In the bar, they asked me to deliver a package to Vitya Tramp over at Yanov. Really, who else can you trust in a constantly shifting hellhole like this zone besides me? But despite all the chaos, some things remain eternal. The guide at the bar still sends people straight to the desktop. Since I'm already here and the client is happy, might as well pick up another package for somebody on Cordon. I'm heading there anyway once I finish my business, but first, I'm gonna recover a stash of weed from the science station and rescue some poor bastard from the human traffic business over in the Red Forest. The stash is close stairs are from here, so we'll start with that. I gotta say, today's weather is absolutely beautiful for this time of year. Even those two starving bloodsuckers that decided to jump me in broad daylight couldn't ruin this lovely sunshine. You can suck my dick, gentlemen. Although I still don't understand who was bold enough to remine an already existing minefield. Either way, there is no place I can't get through. After shooting a couple unfortunate mercs who clearly had no idea who they were messing with, and demonstrating to one of them what happens in America when your health insurance expires, we find the stash inside a ruined house, put a chimera to sleep, and deliver 5 kilos of drugs to a Freedom member. From the army warehouses, where I experienced the longest freeze in my life simply because somebody exploded a grenade. I moved on to the Red Forest, now spawning on a completely different side for some reason. After unloading a Mac into a few innocent zombies minding their own business, I got caught in a swirling vortex of weapons, rocks, and random bullshit, courtesy of two bearers. Once I killed them and attempted to pull out their rich inner world for profit purposes, a pseudo-giant showed up. Luckily, this two-ton motherfucker has never been capable of opening a thin rusty gate, so by turning his own strengths against him, I once again found myself impressed by the sheer professionalism of monolith fighters, as well as the poor Freedom guy desperately trying to absorb the entire hostile ammo supply with his body. Yegorka Executioner would not become a monolith slave today, neither spiritually nor sexually. Unfortunately, the walk home immediately turned paranormal. At some point, my headlamp stopped illuminating the road ahead, and instead started shining directly at the gate right here. I'm sure there is a scientific explanation for that, but I wasn't interested in finding it. I simply reconnected myself to the Matrix and sprinted back to Jupiter, before even more paranormal bullshit started happening. Luckily, I arrived just in time. Some renegade almost killed my client. Here's a medkit for you, and here's your buddy. And finally, by concordant, we hand the package over to Stalker Anomaly. Eat a Toblerone that, for some reason, almost kills me, and go to sleep for an entire day after that desert. Yeah, that's pretty much what my days look like. Repetitive as hell. At least until the next morning. Fedya Whistle desperately begs me to save his friend, who is apparently standing right in front of me. Meanwhile, Fedya himself is sitting at the bar 7 meters away. Now, I've worked in transportation long enough to immediately recognize what happened here. Both of them got catastrophically drunk and temporarily lost the ability to perceive reality. Then Wolf asked me to rescue another courier, where the hell does he even keep finding them, who also turns out to be standing right here. At this point, I'm fully convinced there was some massive drinking binge here, while I was asleep for 24 hours and now nobody can find each other anymore. After that, Junior Sergeant Skameyka asked me to deliver a package to his fellow soldier over at Agoprom. Yeah, I help the military sometimes too. They are just as scared of walking through the zone as everybody else. And every now and then you run into some bandit like this one. You dump half a Mac into him and then suddenly you kinda start feeling bad for the guy. So there you are afterward, digging bullets out of his body with a knife like some depressed battlefield surgeon. The military know me, of course, but there is no reason to annoy their superiors unnecessarily. So I put on a respectable uniform. In a place where the smell of sweat and alcohol already counts as a dress code. We hand over the package to the brave soldier, wish him a nice day, and carry another delivery to Genka Cannery over at the army warehouses. Except right after I give him the package, Genka asks me to escort him to Yanov. Guess the guy got promoted in Freedom. Since Jupiter for some fucking reason is now located across the river, we'll be going through garbage, the uncharted lands, the outposts, and the science station. Stay close, and don't do stupid shit. The zone is an unpredictable place. Sometimes you enter a new location and an entire squad of monoliths suddenly spawns right in front of your nose. At the time, it's just one poor merc who clearly wasn't expecting that level of aggression. Either way, the job got done, and after I shot a few monolith boys for Hawaiian and brought him their artifact, he informed me that Dushman wanted to see me personally. Honestly, I don't really like dealing with mercenaries, but they pay ridiculously well and keep their mouths shut. That alone already puts them above most people in the zone. So I head to that city, stopping along the way to truly experience the beauty of the zone, or rather, feel it directly with my eyeballs, and meet with the boss himself. Third thing he does is sell me a very respectable pistol. Shame it doesn't come bundled with the ability to do round kicks and parry rockets. Then he tells me to head to Zaton and meet a guy named Vector, who finally explains the actual assignment. Apparently I'm supposed to rescue some stalker named Toshka Headtrack from the old road and bring him back alive and unharmed. Bit strange. Why would mercs care about some loner? Then again, the less you know, the better you sleep, especially when it comes to those guys. So after clearing a sawmill full of things that can barely still be called human, we find a place where Toshka's been held, wipe out an entire platoon of bandits, kiss the terrified idiot on the forehead and tell him I'm here to get him out.
Come with me if you want to live.
You must be one interesting bastard if that many people were guarding you and mercenaries are willing to pay serious money just to drag you back alive. Honestly, I wanted this whole thing over with as fast as possible, but the mercs clearly weren't done with me yet. As a final favor, they asked me to deliver another package to someone in the swamps. I really didn't want to do it, but I also didn't want to piss off a client like that. So I agreed, stuffed their junk into my backpack and headed out, stopping along the way to kill a pseudo-giant who apparently climbed the tower just to admire the scenery. What a wonderful day. Honestly, it got so peaceful I suddenly felt the urge to take a nice relaxing shit in the nearest bushes. So I dropped my backpack and finally achieved inner peace for a few glorious minutes. I love listening to crickets singing beneath the symphony of my own intestines. What I don't love listening to is that sound. I lived honestly, I helped people, I did my job, only to get betrayed like some side character in a low-budget crime movie. Truly as it is written, the path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. Do I look like a bitch?
What? English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
Where do you think you going?
Did you fuck me?
What?
Is this some kind of incest thing?
Dude, we are not related. I hope so. Obviously, the mercs tried to kill me because of him. That's exactly why I dragged his ass all the way back to Cordon on my own shoulders, to figure out why. And as expected, Toshka wasn't just some random nobody. Apparently, he used to work as one of the couriers for none other than Johnny Whiskey, or Johnny Whiskas, whatever the hell his actual name was. You know, the Lord of War. See, after the absolute clusterfuck that happened in the zone, Johnny quite understandably disappeared off the radar. There were slightly more than a faction of people who wanted to kill him, spit in his coffin and then throw the coffin itself into the nearest anomaly. So he started showing up less and less, relying mostly on couriers and stashes instead. And Johnny had stashes all over the zone. Naturally, somebody eventually talked. A few stash locations leaked, people started connecting dots, and before long, everyone quietly began hunting down these couriers, interrogating them, killing them, and searching for hidden caches. And our dear Toshka happened to be one of the last, if not the last, couriers still alive who hadn't been interrogated yet. Until today. But the mercs clearly weren't looking for another random stash with a few guns and some cash inside. They were after some kind of secret storage where Johnny supposedly kept his money and his most expensive weapons. And after years of trading weapons in the zone, there had to be a lot of both. A sort of Chernobyl El Dorado, radioactive Aztec gold. Problem is, Toshka genuinely had no clue where the treasure vault was. The few caches he did know about had already been cleaned out long ago. The mercs caught a rotten fish and were about to dispose of him, right before I showed up with my little vendetta and saved his skinny ass. Still, he had a way to repay me. When Johnny vanished completely and couriers started getting hunted down with enthusiasm worthy of a better use, Toshka realized that walking around carrying weapon shipments for Johnny was basically buying yourself a first-class ticket to the afterlife. So he dumped his last shipment into a small stash on Cordon and kindly shared the coordinates with me. Beautiful. Finally, somebody's gonna take proper care of you. Toshka wasn't lying, and he also told me that if I wanted to learn more about Johnny, I should talk to the traders he used to work with, preferably the ones who don't cooperate with mercenaries. As expected, Sidorich practically shit himself from hearing Johnny's name alone and told me to take those questions to duty instead. Apparently, those guys hated Johnny with the level of passion normally reserved for bloodsuckers, freedom and basic human happiness. Colonel Petrenko admitted that they used to buy Soviet weapons from Johnny before they realized what kind of unbelievable asshole he actually was. Turns out they've been looking for him too, and while he doesn't know much, he does have some information worth sharing, naturally in exchange for my professional assistance. Apparently there is some underground complex beneath the bar, and according to duty, something unholy is living down there. For the past few weeks, their fighters have been having strange dreams about freedom, hygiene and women. As you can imagine, such visions deeply insult the dignity of duty itself, so they sent a squad down there to clear the place out. Nobody knows what exactly happened with them, but one PDA signal from the team is somehow still active, and nobody knows where it's coming from. My job: find the survivors, bring them back alive, and if necessary, cleanse the underground while I'm at it. I seriously hope the information is worth this shit. Inside the underground, we were greeted by a poltergeist that had been nerfed straight into the dirt. Things basically just a legless meat sack now. Joints, radio. What the hell did life do to you, poor bastard? Then there was some office worker-looking creature that clearly stayed too long at a meeting, and finally a controller, which I assume was responsible for all the nightmares tormenting duty's proud defenders against the corruption of the zone. After crawling down through the ventilation shaft, we ran into another miserable excuse for a mutant, and judging by the contents of their pockets, it became pretty obvious what purified their powers. Hard drugs. Never did anybody any favors. We also encountered the most impenetrable metal grate in the entire zone. Clearly, even air itself couldn't pass through those tiny holes, let alone a tiny little guy like me. After sending the local workers to their long overdue retirement, I stumbled upon a coded security door. Naturally, I had absolutely no idea what the code was, but when has something like that ever stopped a legendary transporter? Using the ancient sacred technique of throwing a weapon through the doorway, we managed to open it, casually boarded what I assumed was a train, and now I'm wondering where the hell I am. Turns out I ended up not just anywhere, but at Kurchatov 37 itself. And there was Sergeant Gorokhin, greeting me by pointing a rifle directly at my face. Once he learned that duty doesn't abandon its own and that I was there specifically to drag his ass home, he happily agreed to come with me. In exchange, he gave me some weapon lubricant and asked me for a bandage. Luckily, Jupiter isn't far from here, and from there we can grab a taxi back to the bar. Though apparently the Duty Academy forgot to include how to use stairs in basic training. But don't worry, the guy simply teleports back to us after transitioning to Jupiter. Once we got there, the surgeon apparently became bored and decided he wanted to shoot some bandits. 4 seconds later, he was sent back to the lobby. After loading the last safe and firmly ordering him to show his rifle somewhere deep inside himself and not pull it out ever again, we finally made it back to the bar. We returned the missing soldier to the colonel in the same condition as my virginity, completely untouched. And here's what we learned. Duty had been actively hunting Johnny for quite a while and almost cornered him, but the military suddenly showed up and told Duty to back off because they'd handle it themselves. Most likely the army sold out and entered business with Johnny, but apparently he screwed them over too, because after some time the military themselves started desperately searching for him and even asked Voronin whether someone from Duty might have accidentally killed the bastard already. Either way, if I want answers, I need to talk to the military over at Agroprom. Assuming they don't shoot me for questions like that. Well, they won't shoot you if you know who to ask for. The commander, formerly known as Filga Sheetwagon. Basically the military bartender, a guy I've helped more than once and someone the army used whenever they needed to handle important business with me. The second I mentioned Johnny Velasquez, he immediately told me to lower my voice and whisper, because apparently their new colonel at Agroprom nearly suffered 2 strokes while dealing with that motherfucker. Overall, Johnny caused the military a lot of problems, and when they eventually tried squeezing some profit out of him, things somehow got even worse. Back in the day, buying weapons in the zone was nearly literally impossible. Everybody ran around with homemade garbage, assembling rifles out of sticks, rust and blind optimism. The military loved that arrangement. They completely controlled weapon imports into the zone and immediately slapped a non-metaphorical bogak onto any trader bold enough to sell guns in actual quantities. Then Johnny came along and decided to change everything. After that, the zone became completely uncontrollable. The brave soldiers got kicked under the table, and every pseudo-dog in the zone suddenly started making its own rules, until everybody tore each other's throats out and finally calmed down. That's when the military, by a miraculous coincidence, managed to capture Johnny and strike some kind of deal with him. What kind of deal?
Damn good deal.
Naturally, the answer came with conditions. Turns out the colonel currently needed fresh results for his glorious anti-bandit operations because apparently the military had recently become extremely lazy at actually killing criminals themselves. So if I wanted answers, I first needed to deliver a group of bandits for a nice public execution. Honestly, there are very few things in life that bring me greater joy than personally escorting worthless bandit scum directly toward military-grade extermination. So naturally, we headed toward Dark Valley in search of the zone's finest, juicy, premium quality degenerates. Once we arrived in this foggy Albion, we immediately started looking for volunteers for my squad while fighting off bloodsuckers at the same time. Thankfully, locating armed idiots willing to shoot somebody in the zone is approximately as difficult as finding alcoholism in Eastern Europe. In other words, extremely easy. Sultan himself even generously provided me with additional manpower, and just like that, I suddenly found myself commanding an entire platoon of violently unstable morons, fully prepared to become a ceremonial offering to the military-industrial complex. My favorite part was watching the bandits instantly start shooting their own friends the second I put on duty uniform. Dinner is served, gentlemen! Now, personally, I expected the soldiers to descend upon them like starving piranhas, dropped into a swimming pool full of raw meat. But apparently, the military had generally become very lazy lately. They didn't even bother killing the final surviving bandit. I suppose the gods of war were already full and no longer required additional sacrificial blood. Or maybe they simply left this set for me. Either way, my client was satisfied and finally explained what happened when they first caught Johnny. Apparently, the original plan was simple: shoot him like a dog. But Johnny started telling them about his massive fortune, weapon stockpiles, and promised to share everything if the military helped him leave the zone alive and unharmed. Naturally, the colonel, like every local warlord, saw business opportunities immediately. He demanded that Johnny not only smuggle money out of the zone, but weapons too. The more guns they removed from the zone, the better. And at first, everything worked perfectly. Johnny kept bringing them shipments of money and weapons from his secret storage, little by little, alongside smaller stashes scattered around the zone. The man was living beautifully, reporting to command about heroically cleansing the zone of illegal weapons while simultaneously stuffing his own pockets. But eventually, the smaller stashes started drying up. Johnny visited less and less frequently with shipments from the vault, and the colonel began getting nervous. Then one day, Johnny simply vanished. So the old man started throwing military squads across the entire zone, searching every underground tunnel, basement and shithole, remotely resembling a storage facility. And that's when things got weird. Some of the squads simply disappeared, others were lately found dead in various locations. It felt like someone was intercepting these squads. At one point, an entire convoy transporting another shipment vanished somewhere in the forest, and nobody ever figured out what happened to either the soldiers or the cargo. Still, the commander managed to give me two leads. First, they originally captured Johnny in Dark Valley near the rear section of the factory above X18. Second, a trader named Cashier operating on the outskirts of Pripyat. Apparently, he and Johnny worked very closely together. The Dark Valley lead immediately led straight into complete fucking nothing. What the fuck?! Easy. Cashier, on the other hand, turned out to be far more interesting. Well, technically I didn't even reach him, because over at Yanov I got stopped by a Freedom member named Yar. He said he knew what I was looking for and wanted to show me something. He led me to some old house surrounded by zombies and started telling me the story of the place. Turns out this used to be Johnny Velasquez's home. Back before the entire zone turned against him, he lived here peacefully with his wife. They sold weapons, built up wealth, and consumed an impressive variety of illegal substances. But as usual, the zone does everything in its power to replace your happy ending with a full-scale Greek tragedy. Their lives fell apart. Johnny snapped, started doing horrific things for money, and eventually people paid him back exactly how do you expect. The house got looted clean by stalkers, even the grave got desecrated. Then, right in the middle of our conversation, mercenaries suddenly showed up, though we dealt with them pretty quickly. As it turns out, those mercenaries were actually tracking Yar himself, and he very conveniently used my assistance to save his own ass. And the reason they were hunting him was because Yar used to help Johnny search for hidden stashes across the zone, after their cozy little family life collapsed. Now yes, like everyone else, Yar considered the weapons baron a complete piece of shit, but at the same time, he, like many Freedom members, respected Johnny as an idea. After all, Johnny shattered the old stagnant order of the zone and gave everybody the chance to build their own success on equal footing. Someone who was nobody could suddenly become somebody. Isn't that freedom? Well, when everybody starts freely blowing each other apart with their own creative interpretations of morality instead of building themselves brick by brick like normal people and just wants to instantly skip to the top and get everything immediately, yeah, that's definitely freedom. Either way, Yar gave me the approximate location of a stash somewhere in the garbage, along with the rough area where he once found the dead military convoy in the forest. And before leaving, he had one request: help Cashier over in the outskirts of Pripyat. Apparently, something very bad is brewing there. The stashes aren't going anywhere, and I already promised the old Freedom guy I'd honor his request. So I hired Pilot over at Zaton, a guide apparently restrained neither by borders nor classic common sense. This psychopath somehow escorted me directly into the center of a monolith-controlled area packed with zombified stalkers and armed fanatics. Excellent customer service. It was also around this moment that I realized maybe I should finally disable that experimental AOE engine that keeps launching my game straight to desktop every 10 minutes. No, seriously, I think this is already my 49th crash since starting the playthrough. PDAs don't work here either. Monolith is jamming the signal hard, and honestly, the outskirts feel weirdly abandoned overall. Griffin's group is gone from their usual base. The laundromat is almost empty, and after talking to Cashier, it became pretty obvious the situation here smells like dirty dick. No self-respecting stalker can live without a functioning PDA, so Cashier asked me to escort some guitarist and his buddies far south toward garbage. As for Velasquez himself, Cashier admitted he mostly handled Johnny's finances, money laundering, transactions, hidden payments, that sort of thing. What he did know was that Johnny made arrangement with somebody outside the zone, and whoever those people were, Johnny was terrified of them. Apparently, he kept cashing out everything he possibly could through Cashier and handing the money over to those sharks, and it sounds like the bastard may have actually pulled it off. Alright, Stevie Wonder, get your ass up. We're doing this the classic way, through Jupiter, the science station, the outpost, and down to garbage. As you can imagine, the firepower of a squad like this is unmatched. Unfortunately, their combined IQ barely exceeds the freezing point of water, because two of these fine gentlemen got so bored they randomly walked into a tiny building and killed themselves fighting a crowd of zombies. The collective Stalker consciousness clearly struggles under harsh zone conditions, so after taking command personally
No fucking fighting!
and leaving the dead to bury their dead, we spent the night inside the scientist's bunker. The next morning, for some fucking reason, I suddenly ran into Toshka Hetrack sprinting toward me at full speed just to protect me from a mercenary bullet. Apparently the guy couldn't sit quietly in Rookie Village anymore. He really wanted to repay me for saving his life. Bro, don't ever do that shit again. Just look at him. Isn't he adorable? After escorting the boys safely to garbage with no major incidents, I left Toshka at the local shithole bar and strictly ordered him not to stick his nose anywhere dangerous. Then I headed into the Forgotten Forest to search for the missing convoy. Honestly, I'm not surprised nobody touched it until now. The mutant population here is completely insane. Starting with a pseudo-giant that apparently discovered the secrets of stone itself and learned how to manipulate physics according to its personal wishes. And ending with burers, chimeras, another pseudo-giant and a pseudo-dog, and after dealing with all that pseudo-bullshit, I eventually found an interesting trailer surrounded by piles of bones. And inside, a pretty damn impressive collection of modern and rare weapons, some explosives, a golden archive of porn magazines, and an absurd amount of money in multiple currencies, plus several gold and silver bars. Jesus fucking Christ. Now that's a stash. I can't even imagine what's hidden inside the actual treasure vault. After returning to garbage, I decided to check out the stash Yar mentioned. Looks like this is the place. And judging by everything inside, this used to be Johnny's actual apartment. No weapons, just piles of food and supplies, a laptop with a very uncleared brother history, and a safe stuffed with cash and an artifact. So this is where he'd been operating from lately. Which honestly makes sense. You don't keep living deep in the northern zone if you are preparing to disappear at any moment. And that immediately led me to another thought. The closer you get to the southern edge of the zone, the more stashes like this probably exist. And funnily enough, that theory got confirmed by mercenaries. A syndicate messenger tracked me down at garbage and basically proposed a diplomatic ceasefire. He passed along apologies, regrets, and compensation from Dushman for the whole trying to kill me situation and explained what was really happening. Turns out everything they did came from their client. Wow, who could have thought? Some big shots from the outside world that Johnny apparently screwed over too. Huh. So if he betrayed both the military and these mysterious outsiders, then maybe Johnny never actually left the zone. The messenger went on explaining how the syndicate had no idea what they were getting themselves into, how much blood this whole operation would cost them, and that none of it was remotely worth the trouble. Apparently, everyone who gets involved with Johnny Velasquez ends up dying horribly and stupidly. The guy is basically cursed. So in the end, they decided to tell their employers to go fuck themselves and ask for my help instead. Billy Backdoor truly must be the most noble man in the entire zone, if even his enemies come begging him for assistance. Apparently, I now had to rescue a mercenary squad trapped inside Stillrock Stash, which also happened to be one of Johnny's former bases, and escort them safely back to Dead City. This squad had apparently been tracking Johnny's trail long before I got involved, and they supposedly had information that could finally help me. Needless to say, that was more than enough motivation, so naturally, I headed there immediately. As tradition demands, I once again slotted bandits in the underground for what must have been the 120th time since I started playing Anomaly. After that, I killed 2 catastrophically starving bloodsuckers because, honestly, how else do you explain such a catastrophic lack of cake? And finally, I found the mercs. Don't shoot me, twats! Unfortunately, an alpha squad was already waiting for us outside. After fighting our way through them, I decided to escort the mercs through Yantar instead, but thanks to the zone's usual sense of humor, we ran straight into a duty squad right at the transition point. One of the mercs unfortunately couldn't outrun the bullet. May the zone embrace him. After safely escorting the remaining boys back to base, Dushman, who was clearly losing his fucking mind from everything happening lately, sincerely thanked me for the help. In return, he handed over the exact coordinates of one stash the military had already looted, and the approximate location of another one nobody had ever managed to find. On top of that, his guys discovered some numbers inside another stash with a note saying, "In case the coke fries my brain again." At that point, his involvement in this whole mess was over. The syndicate was leaving the zone. And honestly, good riddance, boys. Still, the mercs weren't lying. One solid stash in an abandoned village, complete with empty weapon crates and an empty fridge, had already been cleaned out by the military. But the second stash, that one had to be somewhere in these tunnels. Definitely. And where else could it possibly be except inside a 2-polygon cave hidden behind a wooden wall, complete with a toilet, a fridge full of food, and a small pile of weapons. Not exactly somewhere you'd want to live permanently, but perfectly fine for hiding out a couple days. And those mysterious numbers? What else are 4-digit codes used for in the zone besides giant coded bunker doors underground? Oh fuck.
Surprise, motherfucker.
And there you have it, gentlemen. Our mysterious clients. Turns out the mercs had been working for the ISG, officially a UN branch, unofficially a criminal organization run by elite scumbags outside the post-Soviet world. These bastards had been watching me for a long time, and of course, they already knew where Johnny's treasure vault was. What they didn't know was that it required a code. And after the mercenaries told them to go fuck themselves, I became their last remaining hope. They even promised me a small cut of the treasure. But we all know how deals with sharks like this end. The moment you start doing business with them, your balls end up in their hands. And they'll squeeze so hard, your ears turn blue. After reaching Laboratory X-27 at the garbage through the old railway tunnel and entering the sacred 4 digits, we descend underground. And in this already miserable place, somebody immediately proceeded to piss directly into our eyes. After wandering around in circles for a while and shooting the assorted bullshit nesting down here, we smashed our faces into a giant metal door and followed the commander toward a rusty double gate. And behind it, yeah, I think this was the place. Honestly, there wasn't that much left here. Most of it had clearly already been hauled away long ago. While the main asshole was busy admiring what little treasure remained, I wandered into a nearby bathroom where I found a skeleton lying in the tub with its skull dropped nearly between its legs. Around him, tons of alcohol, cocaine, Playboy magazines, and a photo of some girl. Poor bastard either sniffed or masturbated himself to death. Next to him was a suicide note. To all the bastards who eventually find me here. I spent a long time running from all of you, but I guess the zone finally won. I'm trapped in this crypt and I can't get out. The only food I've got left is vodka, cocaine and Playboy. Friends from ISG. Sorry, there's so little left here. The military caught me by the balls and I had to hand a huge chunk of my capital over to them too. Though honestly, I doubt you would have saved me anyway. Most likely you would have shot me somewhere down here in the basement and forgotten about me. Gentlemen from the military, you can all go fuck yourselves. I still haven't forgiven you for her. Whoever's reading this, I saved you a place next to me in hell. Just don't lock the door from inside unless you want to join me sooner than expected. With hatred, Johnny Full-Alto Velasquez. P.S. You were right, darling. We should have just lived our lives instead of chasing golden mountains. In the end, I got neither. P.P.S. Feel free to take whatever guns and money I've got left. I even carefully arranged the cash into the shape of a dick with hairy balls. Johnny, you are a fucking legend. I figured you probably wouldn't mind some company. So I locked Lieutenant Vorokayev inside, together with the treasure of his dreams, and then I shot the man he'd left guarding the exit, and now, with no living witnesses left to what happened down there, I headed home. Toshka, still cosplaying Peter Parker in his free time, asked me whether I managed to find the treasure. No, Toshka, there was never any treasure. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. I've been thinking about this for a long time now. Maybe sometimes I'm one of those inequitable selfish men. Maybe sometimes even part of that evil tyranny. But I'm trying to be the shepherd. I'm trying hard.